Hello, everyone. My name is Catherine from SEB Housing, and this is the information session for the 5 affordable single-family homes being made available at the Reserve at Spring Hill in Rehoboth. So the purpose of this information session is to give you a little bit of background information on the homes and also cover the application, the eligibility, and lottery process for the affordable program, and then what to expect after the lottery is run. So if you have any questions during the session, you can type them into the Zoom chat, or you can unmute yourself. You were muted when you came into the meeting, just to make sure that we minimize any outside noise during the presentation. But I'll be asking throughout too if anyone has any questions. So this is a live session, as you heard when you came in. This is being recorded so we can save it to SEB Housing's YouTube channel. And it'll be available there for viewing after the fact for anyone who wasn't able to join us. So just for some background information on who we are, so SEB Housing, we are an off-site affordable housing consultant group. So we've been hired by the developer to market the affordable homes, conduct this information session, collect applications for the lottery, and determine whether or not an applicant is eligible for the affordable housing program, and then also we'll be the ones running the lottery eventually. So we're not part of the sales team. We haven't seen the homes in person, but in the initial phases of this application process, we're going to be your main point of contact rather than the sales team. Further along in the process, if you're one of the top households on the waiting list, you will be in direct contact with the sales team to purchase the homes. So there's kind of 2 broad steps in the process. The first being to apply for the affordable housing program, which is the lottery application that you would submit. And you'd be in touch with SEB Housing. We'll let you know if there's any information missing. You don't need to submit any verifying information with your lottery application, meaning you don't need to collect pay stubs right now or anything like that. You just need to estimate what your total annual household income is on your lottery application, and you also need to submit that with a mortgage pre-approval. So in that initial phase of the process, SEB Housing is your main point of contact. We'll do that review of your application, and you'll be entered into the lottery and given a position on the waiting list after the lottery. The second step in the process involves actually reserving and buying one of the homes. So your opportunity to do that will depend on your waiting list placement after the lottery. So there are 5 homes. If there's more than 5 applicants, there will be, there's that need for the waiting list. So if you haven't already done so, you should go to our website, sebhousing.com, because there is a page specific to this lottery on the website. And that's where you'll find the application as well. So if you go on our website and you click on affordable housing opportunities and you select I want to buy, since this is an ownership property, and then you select the reserve at Spring Hill, you'll be taken to a page specific to this lottery with a downloadable version of the application, which is in PDF form, and then also a PDF of a sample deed rider, which I'll talk more about in a few minutes, and then the information packet, which you may have already saw. A lot of the information in the information packet is what I'm going to be covering during this session, but anyone who is on this session, we still recommend that you review the information packet because there's lots of information in there that might be useful to you if you're planning to apply for this lottery. So if you choose to apply, you're going to need to complete that lottery application with your mortgage pre-approval, and you can submit that to us in one of several ways. So you can, most people email it to us just as an attachment, and you would send it to info@sebhousing.com. There's also a fax number listed on the first page of the application. You can send it in by regular mail. There is a secure drop box in Needham where our office is located if you want to drop it off there in person. So whichever one of those options works best for you, we just encourage you to get your lottery application in early if you know that you're interested. It is fairly brief, and like I said, there is no need to submit supporting income documentation at this time. So applications are due by April 6th with your mortgage pre-approval, and yeah, that's kind of the logistics of everything. Does anyone have any questions on just that sort of stuff before I get on to background on the homes and then also the eligibility criteria for the affordable housing program?
No, nothing at this time.
All right. All right. So these homes are going to be sold at an affordable price to households with a total household income at or below 80% of the area median income. And that's for the Rehoboth area. So a lot of this is in the information packet, but you'll see that there's a 2-car garage for both of the types of homes that are part of this lottery. So if you go on the website for the Reserve at Spring Hill, they have some of the floor plans, or at least the outside of what the home is going to look like. And there are several styles, and there is 2 styles being made available, home styles being made available in this lottery. The first is the Hingham style, and that's what's, I don't know if you can see the picture on your screen, but there's 4 of those, and there's 1 Chatham style home. Both homes are going to have the same sales price, so both home styles. So it's $216,700 with an $87 a month HOA fee. They're both 2-bedroom homes, 2 bathrooms, similar square footage to one another. So they both have 2-car garages. They both have additional parking in the driveway. All homes have a covered patio in the rear of the home, and there are sprinklers already set up for the lawn. Oops. There's central AC, tankless water heater, modern appliances. That HOA fee covers several things, including snow removal. There's a clubhouse with a fitness center. So the HOA fee goes towards operations for that clubhouse, and then some other items that will be explained more in detail later on as well. So as you can see, the sales prices for these homes are significantly lower than what you may have seen for market rate homes in the community. So from what I could tell, the affordable homes, so again, they're selling for $216,700, and market rate homes of the development are selling for between about $500,000 and $650,000. So these homes are being made available only to households who qualify for the affordable housing program. So the affordable sales prices are calculated based off of a calculation that includes the area median income. So AMIs are set or established each year by HUD, which is the Federal Housing and Urban Development, and Rehoboth falls in the Providence Fall River AMI area. So that's where that number comes from, a calculation that the affordable housing program dictates. Since these are affordable homes, they're going to have what's called a deed rider filed along with the deed at the time of purchase. So that deed rider ensures that the home remains affordable in the future, even if the owner eventually sells it. So just a quick overview. I know, we haven't even had the lottery, but just to give you a overview of what that deed rider is going to in part dictate. So the deed rider limits the amount for which you can eventually resell the property. So this opportunity isn't for you if you're looking to buy a home, flip it, resell it within a year or so. It doesn't mean you won't be able to sell it for more than what you paid. It just means that it needs to be resold to another affordable buyer. And so you may have some return on investment, but you shouldn't expect the same appreciation that homes selling for market rate can sometimes see. There is a formula for resale price for affordable properties. That's at the last page of the information packet, and that formula also includes area, or is based off of area median income. Another thing that the deed rider says is that it has to be your primary residence. So generally, you can't rent out the property as an Airbnb or a Vrbo or anything like that. And then just one other highlighted item that I wanted to mention that's in the deed rider. If you're looking to refinance or make capital improvements, such as a new roof or something in the future, Mass Housing, which is the agency that oversees this program, would need to approve of that improvement. So these are brand new homes. Some of those improvements, likely won't be applicable for many years, but just want to make sure that you know that you would need to contact the administering agency, Mass Housing, for that sort of improvement to the home. So a mortgage pre-approval, like I mentioned, needs to be submitted along with your lottery application. So if you haven't already got a mortgage pre-approval from the bank, we suggest that if you're interested in this opportunity, after you review the information packet, you either copy or bring page 8 of the information packet with you, which lists the required mortgage pre-approval standards for this housing opportunity. You want your lender to be comfortable with, or at least to be aware of what the standards are for the deed writer, because you want to be sure that the mortgage product that they're offering you is going to meet those standards. So you might also want to bring a copy of the deed writer, which is in the website listing for this property. So just to bring up the information packet real quick, page 8, this is the mortgage pre-approval standards page that I was talking about, and then the deed writer you can get on our website under this opportunity. So just so your lender is aware of the restrictions for this affordable housing program, because some of the restrictions can be problematic for some lenders. So you just want to make sure that your loan accepts the terms of the deed writer. So for example, the loan needs to have a fixed interest rate throughout the term of the mortgage. It also can't be an FHA or a VA loan, because those types of loans don't accept the deed restrictions for the program. So you don't want to be in a situation where the lender grants you a mortgage pre-approval and then backs out at the time of purchase because they weren't made aware of these affordable housing restrictions. And then along those same lines too, we always like to mention that it's been our experience that it hasn't been possible for applicants to successfully close using Bank of America or Chase Bank as their lender. So we recommend that you don't use them for your pre-approval or your mortgage, because it seems like their mortgage products aren't suited for the affordable program. With that being said, though, you can select any lender or bank you would like. We just strongly recommend that you choose someone that has experience with affordable housing programs because of all the nuances. And again, to page 8, there's a link here to mhp.net. There's a lot of lenders listed there that are familiar with affordable housing in general. So if you click on this, there's a lot of, it's from every bank. It's not as if it's just limiting you to a couple of banks. There's recommended lenders throughout the state there. So that's a good place to start if you don't have a place in mind all ready to go. The mortgage pre-approval standards state also that you must provide a down payment of at least 3% of the purchase price. So half of that, 1.5%, has to come from your own funds unless you're receiving some sort of a grant or a down payment from a nonprofit or some other organization that is helping out. So in total, your mortgage amount or your loan can be up to 97% of the purchase price. So any questions on the general application process or the deed writer? I'm going to move on to the eligibility requirements for the affordable housing program, if not. All right. So there's 4 general eligibility requirements. Oh, Patty, do you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right, go on.
I thought you had a question. No?
No.
All right, so the 4 eligibility requirements are listed on page 4 of the info packet, but they're also on your screen now. And the first is that everyone in the household has to qualify as a first-time home buyer. So there are exceptions to this, which I'll talk about in a minute, but even if you or someone in your household qualifies for one of the exceptions, you can't have owned a home. You can't own a home at the time of your application. The second eligibility criteria, which we'll talk a lot more about, if we already have a little bit, is that your income and assets have to fall below the maximum allowable income and assets for the program. And we'll talk about how we calculate that as well. The third is that you have to have that mortgage pre-approval. And then the fourth eligibility criteria is that you can't have financial interest in the development or be a related party. So what the program defines a related party as is, if you are related to the developer or the sales team, you may not be eligible for this lottery opportunity. So to circle back on the first eligibility criteria to explain more, everyone in the household who has to be a first-time home buyer. So all household members are considered first-time home buyers by the Affordable Housing Program if they haven't owned a home within the last 3 years. And that includes through joint ownership. So if a member of your household was on the deed of a home with, a former partner or just anyone else, they're still considered to have owned that home, even if they weren't the sole owner. There's 5 exceptions to the first-time homebuyer rule that are in the information packet. The 3 that come up most often, I'm just going to highlight for you. The first is what the program refers to as a displaced homemaker. So that's someone who hasn't worked outside the home for years, but they work to take care of the home and their family. They've owned a home with their partner or spouse in the past, but they no longer own that home due to divorce or legal separation. So their name is no longer on the deed, but they had owned a home in the last 3 years. The second exception is a single parent with at least joint custody of 1 or more children, or someone who's pregnant who's now displaced due to a family breakup who's looking for a new home. So again, someone who had owned a home within the last 3 years, but now doesn't, they're off the deed. And then the third exception that we're going to talk about is just the age-qualified household. That is a household with a member who is over 55, and that person is selling or has sold a home recently in order to purchase an affordable property. So again, even if you qualify for those exceptions, you still need to have sold your home before buying one of these homes. So that might mean, if you're in the middle of a divorce, for example, you unfortunately would need to somehow accelerate that and have it finalized so that your name is no longer on the deed in order to apply for this lottery. And then the income limits that are on your screen now. So those are the maximum income limits for the Affordable Housing Program. Those are based off of they are the 80% of the area median income for the Providence Fall River area. So the maximum income limits are set by household size, as you can see. So if you're a 1-person household, your total household income would need to be below $64,050, and then it goes up from there depending on your household size. Again, you're not required to submit any verification to show that your total household income is below that amount right now, but you want to estimate as best you can on your lottery application so that, after the lottery is run, you are going to be able to support that income that you listed by submitting pay stubs, bank statements, benefit statements, tax returns for the last 3 years, that sort of thing. And there's going to be if you're approved for this lottery, you'll be sent a link to a documentation requirements guide, which is just basically a document that kind of gives you a better understanding of what you will need to submit after the lottery. So how many pay stubs, and all of that. And so go ahead.
I just had a question. The bank wants all that information too. So we have to give it to you and to the bank for the mortgage?
Right. So the mortgage pre-approval, the bank will have their own standards as to what they're going to need from you for you to qualify for their mortgage product. So yeah, you can keep those aside. If you have your pay stubs either from online or benefit statements or anything, it's likely going to be similar to what we need eventually. Okay. Yeah, we might need updated statements though, because the lottery won't be held for another month or so.
Yeah. Okay.
And then income for this program is counted as a projection of your income over the next 12 months for all household members. So all income for any household member is included. That includes bonuses and overtime. So the only real exceptions to that are if you have minors in your household, so someone under the age of 18 who is earning a wage, we're not going to count their wage income. And then dependent full-time students, so if you have a 21-year-old who's in college or something and they're considered a full-time student, we would only be counting the first $480 of their wages when determining your eligibility. We do need to count gross income. So not the amount you take home after taxes, but the amount before taxes. So although most of us are not taking home the salary listed on your pay stub, unfortunately, the Affordable Housing Program does require that we count gross income. And then how we calculate your income isn't one size fits all, because everyone's income circumstances are unique. So some people are going to have a very steady weekly pay stub that's the same every year or every week, or biweekly. And then there's going to be some people, obviously, who are self-employed or working seasonally. So in those circumstances, if there's more sporadic income, we might need to look further into the past in order to project anticipated income for the next 12 months. And then specifically, if you're self-employed, you're going to need to complete a profit and loss statement and provide supporting documentation for any business expenses. There is a sample profit and loss statement that we have if you don't have one for yourself as well. But in general, any income that you have been making, we're going to have to assume that you will continue making it going forward, unless there's some sort of definitive documentation stating you're no longer going to be earning an income source. So that might be, for example, we saw, on your tax returns last year, you had a bonus. If your employer is not planning on having anybody be eligible for bonuses this coming year, they would need to have some sort of a letter to that effect, or we would need to assume that you would be eligible for that this year as well. So when you're writing down your income on the lottery application, just make sure that you're including everything. So not just wages, but Social Security, if there's any child support or pension income coming into the household, all of that just needs to be listed. There is no minimum income requirement for this lottery, but in order to qualify for a mortgage, you're going to need to meet the bank's requirements in order to receive that mortgage pre-approval. So I like to just mention that. And then in terms of assets, there is an asset limit for this opportunity. So households can't have more than a total of $75,000 in assets at the time of your application. So that includes any funds that you might have set aside for a future down payment, or if a family member is going to be gifting you part of a down payment, that is considered an asset, so you would need to be disclosing that. And then also more straightforward assets like cash and savings or checking accounts, CDs, the net cash value of stocks, even retirement accounts like 401ks. We would need statements showing what's in your Venmo or PayPal accounts, that sort of thing. It gets down to pretty detailed. So a question we have too, you might think it's a little strange that we would be counting money that's tied up in a retirement account, especially since some of you may not be accessing that money for many years. But the program requires us to do so, since you could, in theory, access the money paying a large penalty normally to withdraw your funds. So it is the post-penalty amount of a 401k or a 403b if you have a retirement account. So it's the net cash value that we have to count. So if you have a retirement account, you would need to get a letter eventually from the financial institution that has that account for you, and they would list the post-penalty amount. So if you had, $80,000 in your 401k, and they would write a letter to the effect of whatever the percentage would be that you would lose if you were to liquidate that asset today. And then any income that's generated by your assets would need to be counted as income, and we don't need documentation for personal assets like cars or anything like that. Any questions on income or eligibility criteria?
I have a question.
Sure.
So, for example, if one works in law enforcement and, overtime is not really optional, and it's, 1 year you could have no overtime, 1 year you could have a lot. Does that count towards total income as well?
Yeah, overtime counts. So what my colleagues would be doing when they're looking at the finances for any applicants would be, your last 3 years of taxes, to kind of either have an average of that or to anticipate if there's a, pattern in terms of if you worked more overtime over those 3 years, and they would work with you to kind of get more information if they needed to. But yeah, overtime is counted.
All right, sounds good. And I saw Sarah put a question here in the chat.
Yep.
She asked if is the lottery go based off of how quickly the application's in, or if it's random?
No. So, yeah, I see that here. So, no, if you apply on the first day that the marketing for this lottery started, you don't have a better chance at being high on the waiting list as someone who applies the last day. So that's why the waiting list comes into play. So after the lottery, or during the lottery, we will, and I'll get into that in a few minutes, but we'll be drawing everybody's application number, and then we sort the results onto the waiting list based off of priorities, not off of when you got your application in. So the window to apply is going on right now, and everyone, can just apply during that time. It doesn't matter if you get it in early or late.
You have to have the mortgage with it though, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
In order to be approved for the lottery, you do have to have that mortgage pre-approval with your lottery.
Okay.
And if you submit your lottery application without it, you will hear back from SEB just to give you, a few more days to get that in, assuming it's, before the deadline.
Yeah.
All right. So as I mentioned earlier, if you are interested, you should apply as soon as possible, get the process started. We'll review your application and contact you if anything appears to be missing or unclear to us, and you'll have a chance to resubmit if you need to. If you're found eligible for the lottery, you'll be sent a lottery application number by email, and that'll be in the form of a series of numbers. That's the number that's going to be drawn during the actual lottery. It's just meant to be an anonymous identifier, so your name isn't called during the lottery drawing. It's not a ranking of any sort. It just corresponds with the order we received your application. So if you were the very first person who was approved for this lottery, your number would be A.001. That email that you get is also going to confirm whether or not you indicated on your lottery application that your household qualifies for local preference. So if you work or live full-time in Rehoboth, you could be eligible for local preference, or if you have a child going to Rehoboth Public Schools. So when you're looking at the lottery, when you're looking at that email with your lottery application number, you're going to want to confirm that everything in there identifies your household correctly. So, how many people are in your household, all of that is going to be in the email. And you want to make sure that the email correctly identifies whether or not your household is local preference, because if you mistakenly wrote that you were on local preference, and it's going to kind of screw up your waiting list placement, and you'll see why in a moment. So just check that for accuracy when you get that when you get your lottery application number.
Should I write? I lived in Rehoboth for years, and then after the divorce, I had to move to Attleboro into the apartment. So, do I say that on the?
No, unfortunately, you wouldn't have local preference if you're not currently living in Rehoboth, so you wouldn't need to.
And even if your grandchildren are in the schools and all that, no.
Not unless they're living with you.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the lottery application deadline is March 30th. Is that correct? No.
I thought it was April 6th.
April 6th.
Yeah.
April 6th. I had that wrong here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's April 6th. And so you've got a little bit under a month. And the lottery itself will be held virtually on April 16th at 6 p.m. So it's similar to this format where it will be a Zoom, and I'll be screen sharing to show as the lottery itself takes place. So the waiting list will be created shortly after the lottery. So usually that same evening, the top households will be on the waiting list, will be invited by SEB Housing to move forward to reserve one of the homes, get their mortgage, and then finalize closing. So like I said, it'll be a Zoom session depending on, well, it will be a screen share where you will see the drawing take place. Every lottery number is going to be drawn. So sometimes we think of lotteries, we think, okay, there's 5 homes, they're just going to pull 5 numbers, but that's not the way that these types of lotteries work. So the lottery itself is held in order to establish the waiting list for the home. So they create an order of priority for the next steps in the process. So if you're watching during the night of the lottery, you're not going to know your placement on the waiting list during that call, because all applicants are going to be drawn in the lottery. So, and that's going to be everyone. So it's not just going to be, households who have the highest priority. And what I mean by priority is, if I'm going to go back to the waiting lists that are listed here in the information packet. So when we're creating the waiting list for the local preference 2-bedroom homes, type 2 local preference households are going to have the highest position, the most favorable positions on the waiting list, followed by type 2 non-local households, and then it goes down from there. So a type 2 household is just someone who has, well, I can show you because that's also in here, but basically, if you have a larger household size, you're going to have a larger household type. So 4-person households are considered type 2, 3-person households are considered type 2, and it goes from there. So when you're filling out your application, you're going to see what your household type is. And when we go to sort the waiting list, we're using those household types because these are 2-bedroom homes. So that's why during the lottery, you're not going to know precisely where you fall on the waiting list, because we still need to sort the results onto the waiting list.
So does that mean that if you are on a waiting list and all 5 of those houses are gone, you're still eligible to, if it happens again, if you do another lottery?
So there's not going to be another lottery for these homes, but what would happen is, so if you're a type 1 household, and so you're lower priority on these waiting lists, as opposed to people who have, 3 or 4 people in their household, if the people ahead of you on the waiting list don't qualify or decide not to purchase one of the homes, or during that process somehow fall off the waiting list, then we move down the waiting list to other households. So, yeah.
Okay.
And these are all 2-bedroom homes, so.
Yes.
So if you end up being one of the top households on the waiting list, SEB Housing is going to send you an invitation to move forward in the process. And that's when you would be asked to provide all of your income, asset, and tax documentation that's required to confirm that you're eligible for the opportunity. So at that point, we're confirming what you had listed on your lottery application. So hopefully by that point, you have most of what you need to send in to us, and you'll have about a week to get that requested information into us. I'm just going to go back to the slides here. And there's a lot of information that needs to come in. So if you don't have, most applicants don't have 100% of the information that's required on the first try, both because there's a lot of information required, but also because sometimes when you submit, bank deposits or pay stubs, we might have other questions for you. And that's why we just encourage everybody to prepare your documentation early to make sure that you have everything kind of in order to move forward. And then ultimately, if your household is found eligible by SEB Housing, our next step in the process is to send your completed file to the monitoring agent, which has been assigned by Mass Housing. And that organization is NeighborWorks Housing Solutions for this lottery. And they'll do a file review as well to give us the green light if you're eligible to move forward in the process. So it's kind of like they're cross-checking our determination. Once that monitoring agent has approved your application, the process becomes very similar to what you would be doing if you were purchasing a market rate home. So we always like to say too, at that point, after you've been found eligible by both SEB Housing and the monitoring agent, If you decide to hire an attorney to assist you with navigating through the home buying process, we encourage you to do that. You definitely can. It's a big decision if anyone wants to do that, just to make sure you're understanding the process and you're well represented. But I wouldn't do that before you've been approved by both SEB Housing and the monitoring agent. So it's a little further on in the process. So once the monitoring agent has approved your application, you'll be then put in touch with the owner, or the developer, I should say. And at that point, you could schedule a tour of the home, complete a reservation agreement with them in order to reserve one of the homes. At that point, you'd need to put down a $500 refundable deposit. And then after you reserve the home, you'll have about 10 business days to sign the purchase and sale agreement, which is usually called the PNS. And you'll place the required 1.5% of the sales price at that point, minus that $500 that you had already paid when you reserved the unit. So your purchase and sale agreement is one of the final steps in the home buying process. It might include some agreed upon contingencies, including a closing date and all of that. Once the PNS is signed, you'll have to go back to your lender, the bank, who issued your mortgage pre-approval, and obtain your mortgage commitment. The process is going to vary a little bit from bank to bank, but generally they're going to want to review all of the documentation you have up until this point, like the purchase and sale agreement, the deed rider, and they'll do an appraisal of the home. And then households have to remain eligible for the affordable housing program up until closing. So about 3 to 4 weeks prior to your scheduled closing date, we'll conduct a final review of your income and assets. So we might be asking for updated pay stubs, bank statements, your mortgage commitment letter that you received from the bank. And if you're found eligible by SEB Housing, you've maintained your eligibility, we have to forward your package along to the monitoring agent again for their final review. So there's 2 sets of reviews that happen. And then if your eligibility is maintained, and we both agree on that, you move towards closing. Once you've closed on the home, you don't have any future income or asset eligibility reviews. So, a lot of times we have a question, if I have a child or someone else moves in with me later, would that impact anything because I bought an affordable home? And the answer is no. If you get a raise next year after you purchase the home, it doesn't matter because you were eligible for the affordable housing program and you were under that income limit when you bought the home. Another question, just as an aside, that people ask is the tax rate, the annual taxes on this home. So the Rehoboth tax rate is currently $10.85 per $1,000 purchase price. So the annual taxes for the home are estimated at around $3,300 a year, and that's based on the affordable sales price, not what the market rate homes are going for in the area or in the community. That's all I wanted to cover from the information packet. Does anyone have any other questions that I didn't touch on?
No, you did pretty good.
No, thanks.
Very good.
So yeah, the lottery application, the application deadline is April 6th. You can find that PDF on our website. You can also find the sample deed rider and the information packet on our website under the Reserve at Spring Hill webpage. And yeah, if you have any questions, if you're watching this after the fact too, or if you have any questions for us, please email us at info@sebhousing.com, or this is the number that you can call as well if you'd rather talk on the phone. And yeah, we look forward to getting your application.
The application address, where do we send that now? When we get everything?
Yeah, so there's a few ways to send it in. If you email it to info@sebhousing.com, that's the most popular way to get it into us. So you'd send it as an attachment. You can also mail it though to
257 Hillside Avenue.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Yep, and it's on the first page of the application there.
Yeah, I got it.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
No, that's good.
All right, thanks for Thanks for joining in. And like I said, we look forward to getting your application. We'll be in touch soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.